The Conqueror in Zim says, we are expecting an economic blueprint as soon as possible. We also look forward for constitutional and electoral reforms. Moreover, we expect a deeper analysis of the indigenization policy, which crippled our economy to the abyss of poverty. Jobs and infrastructure needs attention too. Oh, the Conqueror.
Kagiso Munyadi says, I'm not sympathetic to Mugabe, but I doubt Mnangagwa is Zim's political messiah. He is Zimbabwe's Jacob Zuma, a white monopoly choir boy.
Whoa, well, there you have it. These are some of your comments. Keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. But today is Black Friday. On the poll, we're looking at those long queues at many shopping malls. Some people started shopping last night at 12 o'clock, Kendall.
Yeah, I can't believe it. But you know what? If you've got it and you've got it, go use it. We're asking you today, though, are you spending money on Black Friday? We're giving you 3 options, and you're using them all. 343 votes in, Elvis.
55% says, I am broke.
Yeah.
What day is it today? It's the 24th of the month, and you're broke. Well, startling.
It's called debit orders.
39% are suggesting, no, we are not spending money on Black Friday. Only 6%. Now, those must be the people last night spending money at 12 o'clock midnight.
Absolutely.
At game.
And everybody else is trying to get into a site that's probably like crashed because so many people are trying to hit it, trying to spend money on Black Friday.
Well, there was also a message or a tweet from takealot.com that says that their system has crashed.
That's right.
Yeah, a lot of people are spending money. Unnecessary sometimes. But of course.
We've got a sporting question.
We have a sporting question.
We've got a massive weekend ahead of us. Yeah. The Springboks are playing, but you know, not everybody's paying a lot of attention to that, besides the fact that Bongi Mbonambi is getting a first ever start in the green and gold. SuperSport United playing in the final leg of the CAF Confederations Cup. What are your messages of support for?
Oh, it is a big one. It is a big one for SuperSport. If they win this one, oh yeah.
Continental glory all round. Michael,
Big M. In fact, there we move away from Michael, as Siafana says. The CAF Confederation Cup, go there, guys, and teach them how we are playing the ball in Mzansi. And we are 100% behind you. Hashtag SuperSport United.
Then Mahafa Noah says, go make us proud. We are behind you, and all the best.
Well, keep them coming, guys. We'll read them as we continue during the course of the day. But right now, let's go get down to business and take a look at your news headlines. Thousands are gathering at the National Sports Stadium in Harare for the inauguration of Emmerson Mnangagwa, Zimbabwe's interim president, this morning. Here at home, the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein will today deliver judgment in the prosecution's appeal to challenge the sentence imposed on the convicted murderer and disgraced Paralympic gold medalist Oscar Pistorius. And the outgoing ANC President Jacob Zuma hosted a working dinner last night with ANC cadres who have made themselves available for nomination as the president of the ANC at the 54th National Conference next month. Those are all your headlines. Before we get there, let's find out from Kendo Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Elvis, thank you very much. Good morning. This is what we have for you in the sports today.
Place of Solonyani is going to go for goal! That is a magnificent shot!
Sipombule's rocket goal scored in Lubumbashi gives Matatsanza hope for continental glory as they prepare for the second leg of the CAF Confederations Cup against two-time champions TP Mazembe.
Because like I said, we get one, ties back in our favour. We only need to score one. And then it's a different ball game now. Falls back in our favour. And a 2-2 draw means we go through and we win the cup. They don't.
Bongi Mbonambi will get his first ever start as discredited coach Alistair Gauthier makes 2 changes to decide to face Italy over the weekend.
Oh, it's worth a shout. That is straight.
England is meeting out the same treatment they got from Australia as they take 4 quick wickets on day 2 of their first test at the Gabba. All this in more detail I've got for you at 10:40. Stay with Elvis as he's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Our top story this morning. Zimbabwe takes center stage today with the inauguration of the interim president, Emmerson Mnangagwa. Zimbabweans are gathering at the National Sports Stadium in Harare for the ceremony. It will officially end the 37-year reign of Robert Mugabe, who resigned on Tuesday after last week's military takeover, and he's acting as ZANU-PF leader over the weekend. South African Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services, Siyabonga Cwele, will present or represent President Jacob Zuma at the inauguration.
The challenges are clear, and for the new Commander-in-Chief, a strong, focused and dedicated team is needed. He is expected to appoint a new cabinet soon with far-reaching changes, with some former ministers having already been expelled from ZANU-PF. Mnangagwa's dream of a lean cabinet may be realized. The bloated cabinet has always been his concern.
He's a great strategist and he's a businessman, excellent. And with if he can work on energy, so that when we have energy, our manufacturing industries can begin to blossom. And then with the wonderful people like Comrade Chris Mchangwa, if he was to end the Foreign Affairs Ministry to mobilize the international world to come in, I know that we will go somewhere.
Mnangagwa is expected to appoint 2 vice presidents, including one who is likely to be a member of former ZAPU, and the war veterans are expected to be accommodated in cabinet. Sophie Mukwege, SABC News, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Now, it's a big day for Zimbabwe today when its first new leader in nearly 4 decades will be inaugurated. Let's now take a look at Emmerson Mnangagwa's journey.
Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa has been Zimbabwe President Robert Mugabe's right-hand man most of his political life. He served as vice president from 2014 until his dismissal as vice president on the 6th of November 2017. Things between Mnangagwa and First Lady Grace Mugabe were contained in the party since 2016. Everything changed after he took ill in August at a ZANU-PF rally and was airlifted to South Africa for treatment. Following that incident, he and President Mugabe contradicted each other, Mnangagwa saying he was poisoned, Mugabe saying he wasn't. This angered First Lady Grace Mugabe, who publicly called for Mnangagwa's removal.
He actually wanted to wrestle power from the president.
It is Mnangagwa's dismissal from both cabinet and the ruling ZANU-PF that brought out both the Zimbabwe war veterans and the army out of barracks, guns blazing.
The current purging and cleansing process in ZANU-PF, which so far is targeting mostly members associated with our liberation history, is a serious cause of concern to us in the defense forces.
From these statements, it would seem President Mugabe had stepped on a landmine of his political career and the battle lines were drawn. Emmerson Mnangagwa was born on 15 September 1942 in Shivashani in central Zimbabwe. He was in primary school when his family was forced to relocate to northern Rhodesia, present-day Zambia, in 1955. In Zambia, he completed his primary school and enrolled for a building course, but he was quickly selected to enter Hodgson Technical College, where he was expelled in 1960 for political activism at the tender age of 18. After being expelled, he went into business briefly, but joined United Independence Movement Party of Zambia, where he was elected to the Youth League. In 1962, Mnangagwa was recruited into the Zimbabwe African People's Union, ZAPU, trained in Tanzania and at the Egyptian Military Academy. When ZAPU members broke away to form the Zimbabwe African National Union, ZANU, in 1963, Mnangagwa joined it, leading to his and other cadres' detention by Egyptian authorities who recognized ZAPU. Robert Mugabe secured their release and they returned to Tanzania. Upon his return in 1964, he and his group formed the now well-known Crocodile Group in Zambia. Mnangagwa and the Crocodile Group fought the liberation war on many fronts, traveling on foot between Salisbury, which is present-day Harare, and Tanzania. They smuggled arms, recruited cadres for training, and mounted roadblocks to terrorize whites. In the process, they deliberately alerted the media to their activities to draw attention from the Organization of African Unity, OAU. In December 2014, he became vice president of ZANU-PF and Zimbabwe. He continues to command a faction of ZANU-PF called Lacoste, a more modern version of the Crocodile Group of the 1970s. His run-ins with First Lady Grace Mugabe have resulted in her leading the Generation 40, another faction that wanted Grace to be vice president. From then on, allegations that Mnangagwa wanted to unseat Mugabe came into the open.
The party comes first. First, whatever differences you might have, the party comes first.
2 days later, Mnangagwa was removed from the Justice Ministry in a cabinet reshuffle, and the following weekend, Mnangagwa supporters humiliated the First Lady, causing the cards to tumble.
I think he is also my president. I love my president. I respect my president. I will help him to make this country prosper.
In no time, Mnangagwa had fled, saying he feared for his safety, but vowing to come back to lead ZANU-PF. Within 48 hours, it was clear who the Zimbabwe armed forces were behind. ZANU-PF has now made its decision.
Comrade Emerson Ambudzo Mnangagwa is vice president in second sector of ZANU-PF, and his expulsion from the party be and is hereby nullified forthwith.
Now President Robert Mugabe has resigned, and Zimbabwe waits for Emerson Mnangagwa to take over, as his whereabouts remain a closely guarded secret. Ntakwana Ngatani, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now we'll bring you an update on that story, the inauguration process currently underway in Zimbabwe, with our reporters Sophie Mukwena as well as Eldrin St-Pierre. They are both in Harare, and they'll bring us an update on that, so you don't want to miss it. But that's why we're asking you this very important question today. It's a new dawn, some say, for Zimbabwe. Would like to know from you, what do you hold for, what are your hopes rather for a new Zimbabwe? Let me know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. We'll take a look at that, so you have to stay tuned. But let's come home now to some of the stories making news here at home. All eyes will be on the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein this morning. Now this, as the SCA delivers its judgment in the prosecution appeal to challenge the sentence previously imposed by the High Court on the Paralympic gold medalist Oscar Pistorius. The National Prosecuting Authority approached the SCA to get a harsher sentence, saying that the 6-year sentence previously imposed was too lenient. As you can recall, Pistorius shot and killed his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp on Valentine's Day in 2013. He told the court that he mistook his model girlfriend for a burglar. The state maintained that his testimony was untruthful. Still in court, the murder trial of Christopher Panayiotou, who masterminded the abduction and killing of his wife Jade, will come to an end today. Panayiotou and 2 co-accused will be sentenced in the Port Elizabeth High Court today. Jade Panayiotou was murdered in April 2015 by men who were hired by her husband.
Christopher Panayiotou's sister Calliope read out a letter in mitigation of sentence. She told the court that Panayiotou's family also suffered a great loss with Jade's death. She told Judge Dalen Chetty that her brother was a kind-hearted man. Defense advocate Terry Price asked for a lenient sentence, as Panayiotou has the potential to be rehabilitated as a first-time offender. The state wants life imprisonment for Panayiotou and Sinatemba Nenembe, and the maximum sentence of 15 years for their co-accused Zolani Sibeko. Lutando Sioni will stand trial for murder, robbery and defeating the ends of justice. His legal representative, Zolile Ngeza, told the court his client was a victim in the matter. He said Sioni should never have been a state witness if he was to be discredited by the state after his testimony. Judge Chetty said Sioni would not be exonerated. Jadely Paulser, SABC News, Port Elizabeth.
Could I get an alcohol-free beer, please?
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, but make it a castle-free.
Castle free. 0% alcohol, 100% Castle.
Now, yesterday, the Monetary Policy Committee, the MPC of the South African Reserve Bank, has decided to leave the repo rate unchanged at 6.75%. Some good news for us. Now, that means that the prime lending rate stays at 10.25%. The MPC also raised its 2017 growth forecast, though, slightly from 0.6% to 0.7%. SABC's governor, Lesetsa Kganyago, said that the upcoming ANC elective conference in December is likely to weigh on the rand. The employment outlook also remains worrisome. Weak consumer confidence, international oil prices pose an upside risk, and there's a likely petrol price increase in December. Now, all of this could have an impact on a ratings downgrade. To help us unpack these issues here on Black Friday, we are joined by economist Professor Raymond Parsons of the Northwest University of Business and Governance. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Good morning, Elvis.
Now, the MPC decided that it would be prudent to maintain what we currently have, the current stance on monetary policy at this stage. I'm sure that the massive Black Friday discounts today had nothing to do with it. But what could you tell us? What were some of the contributing factors that led to a stay of execution?
Well, Elvis, I think if I were sitting behind the desk of the governor of the Reserve Bank or serving on the Monetary Policy Committee, I would have taken the same decision and said the same things. Because the theme that runs throughout the MPC statement is this big hurdle of uncertainty, of both political and economic uncertainty. And he ticked all the boxes more than once. There's the ANC conference next month, of course, the uncertainty around there, the issue of the reaction to our medium-term budget policy statement, which was not very well received in terms of the plans that were outlined to hold the line in terms of our public finances, the fact that the credit rating agencies are hovering around again and are about to announce a decision, another source of uncertainty, and then also the big question mark over Eskom and its tariffs, because that's an important factor in a lot of consumer and indeed business planning. So the bottom line really was we need to sit tight because there are so many uncertainties until we know where we're going on a lot of these issues, that we'll have to leave interest rates where they are. And that's really, I think, the strong message that has come out of this MPC statement.
Let's break that down a little bit, because the elevated political as well as the policy uncertainty, plus, of course, the medium-term budget, as you said, it wasn't very well received. Do these events now pose a greater risk of investment downgrade for the country, you think?
Well, quite clearly, it depends on how the credit rating agencies will react. We've already had a reaction from Fitch, but they're the smallest of the three agencies. They had already downgraded us, so they've simply said, well, we are going to stand with that for the time being, and you can read into our narrative what the warning is. The other two, which we will have later today, will be Standard & Poor and will be Moody's. Now, they can play it either way. They can either say, on the numbers, you don't look good, so we're throwing the book at you, we're going to downgrade you, or they may say, well, there is the special political dimension. which could affect the future course of the South African economy. So while we might give a strong message or shape a sword of Damocles, if I can put it that way, but not take a decision until perhaps January or February, there seems to be divided opinion as to whether they will give us a technical answer and a severe answer, or whether they'll set it in a broader political context and simply wait, but they will couple it with a very strong warning narrative.
Let's stick with that point, because the governor did say that the upcoming ANC elective conference in December is likely to weigh on the rand. Why is that, and why is the ANC elective conference so important?
Well, if you read what was said by the Reserve Bank, the important point is that this catalogue of uncertainties, the most important bottom line is, of course, the exchange rate. And indeed the volatility of our rand. Yes, it is shaped by external factors, that's true, but it's also vulnerable to internal factors. And in fact, the external factors have been helping us. They've actually strengthened the rand. So the big question mark for the Reserve Bank is, if we're downgraded, if we eventually fall out of that international bond market, which means that the costs of borrowing go up in South Africa, not only for the government, but also for the private sector, then quite clearly this could lead to an outflow of capital. And that might mean a weakening of the rand and the possibility of more inflation. So that was, for the Reserve Bank, a very strong caveat as to why they felt they should sit tight for the time being as far as interest rates are concerned, because of these uncertainties in the situation.
Now, what remedies, Professor, do you think should be considered to ameliorate this economic impact of the recent political developments, and in particular, what should business do?
Well, Elvis, I think the answer must be that for the moment we've got to accept that there are certain realities here that will need to be managed, certain of the political realities, I've simply said, look, and we've said in our own Northwest University Policy Uncertainty Index, just for the moment, you must accept that political and policy uncertainty is the new normal. We have to deal with it. It's got to come to an end, because it's having quite an inhibiting effect on a number of things, as we saw again yesterday from the Reserve Bank. What I think the private sector is doing, it's coping with it. Obviously, we're not saying that our economy must come to a standstill, but we know what the overarching challenges are. That of growth, employment, wanting to reduce inequality, all those good things we want mean that next year this economy, once the political decisions have been taken and the new leadership has been established, decisions have to be taken to get this economy moving. And so I think we've got to bridge this gap and get on to the new year as soon as possible.
Let's now turn our attention to Zimbabwe. Some suggest it's a new day for Zimbabwe. It's the inauguration of Emerson Mnangagwa. They call him Lacoste, or the crocodile, in Zimbabwe. It brings to an end 37 years of Robert Mugabe's rule. What do you think is the outlook? What does the outlook look for Zimbabwe in future, economically related?
Well, I think from the South African point of view, we have a vested interest in this going right now, both from an economic and a political point of view. They are our neighbor. They were once the second largest economy in Southern Africa. I think it's in our interest that they should be restored to that position. You spoke about a new dawn. The great danger is that it might become a false dawn. So it's very important that the new leadership, both from a political and an economic point of view, show that they can turn that situation around and rebuild the confidence that's needed for investment, for jobs, for growth, and above all, to restore their society to a normality which it has lost over the years. So it's like South Africa, although we're not the same, but the overarching challenge is to get both the politics and the economics right, so that the country can thrive and do justice to its people in the future years.
A final thought, Professor, could there be greater consolidation of Zimbabwe's economy and, of course, cooperation with South Africa and the SADC region in order to bring that country back to where it was, the breadbasket of Africa?
Well, just remember that bread basket has become a basket case, as they like to say. We have to turn that round. This is a great opportunity, a great opportunity. We've got to be careful, of course. We've changed the jockey. We haven't yet changed the horse. That is of course, the ZANU-PF. They've got to now show, through the new leadership, can it be inclusive? Can it reconstruct that economy? And can it restore an important country like Zimbabwe with such enormous potential on our doorstep to playing its rightful role in sub-Saharan Africa? That's the big challenge that they face in Zimbabwe now under their new political leadership, and it's a challenge to us to also help them achieve that.
Final thought, 30 seconds.
Well, I think the final thought must be there's still a lot going to happen, both in Zim and in South Africa, before the end of the year. So I would say to all the viewers, watch the space.
Professor, thank you so much once again for joining us here in studio. That was economist Professor Raymond Parsons from the Northwest University School of Business and Governance, the SBG. Your thoughts on that, and of course, we're awaiting your thoughts on Zimbabwe as a whole. Your thoughts. But we'll take a short break. We'll be back right after that. We'll probably go to the inauguration process a little later.
Marco.
Bolo, bolo, bolo.
2 weeks earlier.
Gentlemen, welcome to our pub. Castle.
Share a castle, make some new friends.
A new 1 litre from Carling Black Label. Share the ultimate reward.
Africans are increasingly using digital platforms for life, work and play.
Information is key for us. We live in an information age. We live in the digital age.
I'm mostly on WhatsApp because not all my friends have iPhones, so they don't have FaceTime.
On Network, we tell you about Africa's technology and social media landscape. And some here are using the internet to raise political concerns.
Some of the exposés on political issues come from what we call your diasporic online media.
Africans are also using technology to create. For African technology and social media news, join Ms. Phumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 9 p.m.
Now, President Jacob Zuma can't attend the inauguration of Emmerson Mnangagwa's inauguration due to an official state visit by Angola's new head of state, João Lourenço, today. The post-Robert Mugabe transition and the rising political tension in the DRC are expected to top the agenda of the meeting at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. President Lourenço is on his first ever state visit to a foreign country since winning the election in August to succeed Eduardo dos Santos. President Lourenço is leading a high-level ministerial as well as a business delegation to discuss investment opportunities in the two SADC countries. Now, Angola is one of South Africa's major trading partners in the region. Now, as soon as we are ready, we'll get hold of our SABC presidential correspondent, Mzwandile Mbeja. He is there live and will bring you an update on that as soon as we can get hold of him. So you don't want to miss any of this. It's all happening today. It's a rolling live show. Meanwhile, the outgoing ANC President Jacob Zuma hosted a working dinner last night with the ANC cadres who have made themselves available for the nomination as the President of the ANC at the 54th National Conference next month. Now, the 7 ANC leaders committed themselves to promote unity and comradeship in the preparation for, during and after the national conference in the interest of building a stronger, united and more cohesive ANC. The President met with Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, National Chairperson Baleka Mbete, the Treasurer General Zweli Mkhize, the NEC members Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Lindiwe Sisulu and Jeff Radebe, as well as the former Treasurer General Matthews Poza. Now, as you know, the Secretary General of the ANC called the members racing towards the leadership race as a stampede. Well, let's go to that package right now to bring you an update on that.
A meeting with all the presidential candidates of the organization. We have had a good meeting and a dinner. I had invited them to come. This is after I had first raised the matter with the officials of the ANC as an outgoing president of the ANC, taking into account the activities of the campaigning that is being done within the organization and what is happening, and taking also the example of what comrades have done in other kind of one or two other conferences in the past. And I was worried that the coming conference, which is being looked at very seriously, not just by the ANC only, but also by the world.
Now, President Zuma can't attend, the inauguration of Emmerson Mnangagwa in Zimbabwe due to that official state visit by Angola's new head of state, João Lourenço, today. Let's now go live to our presidential correspondent who is on the ground where the president will be meeting President Lourenço, our correspondent, Zwandile Mbecha. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
A very good morning to you, Elvis, and to the viewers.
First and foremost, can you tell us what is the significance of the Angolan President, João Lourenço, to South Africa, that visit today?
Elvis, this is a very important visit by President João Lourenço. You will remember that this is a newly elected president. Actually, this is his first state visit to South Africa, indeed underscoring the importance of the relations between these two countries. In fact, I actually am reminded that when President Zuma was inaugurated, his first state visit was to Angola. So you can see this is a special relationship. There have been a lot of interactions between these countries, and we expect those relations to be strengthened today with a number of agreements that will be signed, Elvis. But of course, I am with the presidential spokesperson, Dr. Bongani Ngulunga, who will tell us more about this visit because it's quite important. I understand that more than 10 ministers, some are saying as high as 18 from Angola are coming. Quite significant, Doctor.
Yes, I mean, this is the most important visit, I mean, in a sense. As we have said, this is the first foreign visit by President Lourenço to any country. I mean, so he has decided to come to South Africa to underscore our strong bilateral relations. And so it's a very important visit. There are a number of agreements that are going to be signed. I mean, in the first instance, the bilateral relationship between the two countries is going to be elevated to be a binational commission, where heads of state every year are going to meet to check the progress on the bilateral agreements that have been signed between the two countries. But I think as Africans are going to be happy, those who travel between the two countries, that there will be a waiver on the visa requirement. I mean, you know, it's very difficult to travel, for instance, to Luanda. And so pretty soon, we won't need a visa if you're a South African to travel to Angola. It's one of the agreements that are going to be signed. But there are many other agreements that are going to be signed.
Indeed, that does show that this is a very important visit. We have seen actually these two presidents spending a bit of time together. President Zuma was there at his inauguration, and as recently as about 2 days ago, they were together, and they were supposed to undertake a mission, which they never did.
Yes.
But there does seem to be there's special relationship as well between them.
Yes, there is indeed a special relationship between the two of them. You should remember before President Lorenzo became president, he was the Minister of Defense. President Dos Santos used to send him as a special envoy to President Zuma, so they know each other very well. I mean, you saw when President Zuma 2 days ago was in Angola, they are very close and cordial, and so it's a very important visit between the two countries. And one of the issues that they are going to be focusing on today is strengthening especially economic relations between the two countries. South Africa is Angola's largest trading partner, and so you can imagine we have a number of South African companies that are in Angola, and so one of the issues that they will be discussing is strengthening those economic relations. There's going to be a business forum. He has brought a large delegation, not only of Angolan ministers but of Angolan business persons, and so it's a very important historic visit that we have today.
One of the things, Doctor, people from South Africa have been complaining about was that doing business in Angola is very, very difficult because of the high cost of doing business there. I understand that in the delegation there's also the governor of their Reserve Bank. So is that perhaps to make some of the transaction easier, or those negotiations to enable South Africans really who want to invest in Angola?
Yes, indeed. I mean, as I have said, making sure that doing business between the two countries is easier is on the top of the agenda between the two heads of state. It's one of the issues that they will be discussing. I mean, we are quite aware that South African companies that are based in Angola have complained a bit. I mean, that sometimes it is difficult to repatriate the money from Angola to South Africa because of the foreign currency restrictions. Is one of the issues that the two heads of state will discuss. I mean, and it is also the reason why President Lorenzo has brought a large, perhaps one of the largest delegations by the head of state to bring on a state visit. I mean, we have had to change venues today to accommodate the large delegation that he has brought. It just shows how seriously he takes the state visit and how seriously President Jacob Zuma is taking the visit by President Lorenzo.
Thank you very much, Doctor. So that was the presidential spokesperson, Dr. Bongani Ngolunga, really giving us an insight into this important state visit by the president of Angola. Remember, this is his first state visit after being inaugurated. And of course, the ministers have started arriving. I've seen our Minister of International Relations, Minister Maitengwana Mashaban, and quite a number of them. I actually earlier on saw Minister Natim Tetwa. So you can see this visit is about to get underway, and indeed that large number of ministers from Angola also have made their way here.
Zwandile Mbeja, our SABC presidential correspondent on the ground there. We'll go there live a little bit later, so you have to stay tuned. Let's now go back to Zimbabwe. That's one of our focus points, of course, to talk more about Emerson, the crocodile Lacoste Mnangagwa, and what the future holds for Zimbabwe. We are now joined in studio by SABC Channel Africa producer Isa Komo of the program Spotlight. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Thank you. Morning to you and morning to the listeners.
As an African specialist, tell us and take us back to who exactly is Emerson Mnangagwa.
Okay. Emerson Mnangagwa. As they tell us that he was a war veteran, and if you look at his credentials, that they're the starters of the war. In 1965, as a young boy, he actually, under 20, he actually sort of joined ZANU, went to train in China, stayed in the camps in Chunya. Apparently in the camps in Chunya, he was there together with the PAC fighters. So people like the late Ntantala, that is Paulo Jordan's uncle, they used to talk about being in the same camp with the ZANU fighters. So it was them. But all the same, the first people who actually sort of launched the struggle, but unfortunately he was arrested. And when he was arrested, he was sentenced to jail. That was in 1965. He was in jail for 10 years, and whilst on jail, he actually did his O-levels and A-levels. And his teacher was nobody but the former president, Mugabe, Robert Mugabe. He actually he had classes there. Now, when he got out, they say that he got out. He was not, in fact, he was due to be hanged, but because he was under 21, they actually jailed him. But he came out somehow after 10 years, and the first thing that he did, that was in 1975, he went to Zambia, UNZA, Zambia University, where he did a 3-year law course. On completing his law course, he went to Mozambique, where he became a secretary or an advisor or a coordinator for the ZANU PF, ZANU leaders, so not PF, that was Mugabe. And that's where he actually continued until 1980 when they got independence and he came back into Zimbabwe. But since then, he has always been the right-hand man or the secretary or the coordinator of military and other issues for Mugabe. So he's been very close to Mugabe from prison.
He's also been linked to the massacre of the Ndebelés.
Well, the Ndebele massacre, he's linked to that. Right? See, the massacre of the Ndebelés, people have got to understand that Gukuruhundi very well. I don't know if you've got time, but I will try to explain it. You see that after Zimbabwe got independence in 1980, there was a split within the armies. Yeah, when they had to actually unite the armies. There was a tacit plan of the ZIPRA, the ZAPU army, to actually somehow have a push, which they did try, but it failed. Now, when it failed, the renegade elements of ZIPRA, they actually ran into exile. Most of them went to Botswana, to the Dikwe camp. But the thing that happened at that same time was the time when the South Africans took over Renamo, and they were trying to stop the struggle, actually, from Zimbabwe from coming near their borders. So when the South Africans took Renamo, they took Renamo to their special forces camp. That's Palabura, a very secretive camp, which even army generals cannot get in there. But they've got all sorts, even Tanzanian boys are there. Let's say it openly. But then these guys were trained and they were infiltrated into Mozambique. At the same time, the South Africans took these renegade elements of ZIPRA, trained them, armed them, and took them back to Zimbabwe. What they were trying to do, they were trying to actually pressure Zimbabwe so that they could really sort of get the South African liberation forces out. Now, in the process, that's where the 5th Brigade was formed.
I'm going to ask you to hold that thought, Mr. Korma. You're going to finish that point for us later, because as we speak right now, all eyes are on the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein this morning as the SAA delivers that judgment in the prosecution appeal to challenge the sentence previously imposed on the High Court on the Paralympic gold medalist Oscar Pistorius. Let's go there live.
And three counts of contravening the Firearms Control Act 60 of 2000. On 12 September 2014, the court found him not guilty of murder, and instead he was found guilty of culpable homicide. On 21 October 2014, he was sentenced on the culpable homicide count to 5 years imprisonment in terms of Section 276(1)(I of the Criminal Procedure Act. The state appealed against the culpable homicide conviction. This court, on 3 December 2015, set aside the culpable homicide conviction and replaced it with a conviction of murder on the basis of dolus eventualis and referred the case back to the Court of Law to consider a fresh and appropriate sentence. The Court of Law considered an appropriate sentence, and on 6 July 2016, the respondent was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment. Aggrieved by this sentence, the state applied for leave to appeal against the sentence imposed on the murder conviction, and on 26 August 2016, the Court of Law dismissed the application for leave to appeal. On 14 September 2016, the state lodged an application for leave to appeal in this court. On 2 November 2016, this court ordered that the application for leave to appeal be referred to oral argument, and that if called upon to argue the merits of the appeal, the parties must be prepared to do so. This court held the application for leave to appeal and the merits of the case on the 3rd of November 2017. After hearing argument on both the application for leave to appeal and the merits of the appeal, this court, by unanimous decision, granted the state leave to appeal and found that the sentence imposed by the Court of Law is inappropriate. This court determined that the respondent, Mr. Pretorius, should have been sentenced to 15 years imprisonment, but took into account the sentence he served prior to being sentenced on the 6th of July 2016. The respondent had already served a period of 12 months imprisonment and correctional supervision for a period of 7 months, and he was given credit for that. I will now go back to the judgment, and I'm not going to read the whole judgment. I'll only read the order. The order reads as follows. 1, the application for leave to appeal is granted. 2, the appeal against sentence is upheld. 3, the sentence imposed by the Court of Law in respect of matter is set aside and substituted with the following. The respondent sentenced to imprisonment for a period of 13 years and 5 months. I hereby hand down the judgment.
In the matter between Dr. Gotu Basson and Professor J.F.N. Hugo.
I please the Court Justices. I'm appearing on behalf of the appellant together with my learned colleague, Mr. Van Zyl.
Thank you, Mr. Senior. As it pleases Justices, I appear on behalf of the third respondent in this matter with my learned friend, Mr. Kutumela.
Thank you, Mr. Jube. Thank you, Mr. Sile.
Thank you, Justice Shongwe.
Well, before you start, may I just ask you, I know you have prepared, your submissions. May I ask you to state your roadmap,
yes,
as far as how you want to proceed.
As you please, Justice Shongwe. We submit, Justice Shongwe, Justices, that 2 issues before you to decide. The first issue is the question whether there is indeed an effective internal remedy or was an internal remedy available to the appellant to follow at the stage when he approached the High Court. And secondly, and this is only, we submit, an issue that will become relevant if you are against us on the first issue, and maybe I should then just make the submission that we submit that the Court a quo was, with respect, wrong in finding that there was indeed an effective internal remedy available, as we would submit was the first question to be decided. But even if you are against us on that, or only if you are against us on that, then the second issue will arise whether exceptional circumstances was in fact available, or there were exceptional circumstances justifying an exemption from the obligation to exhaust internal remedies as is required in terms of Section 72C of PAJA. The Court a quo indeed found on both the appellant, and the application was dismissed on that basis, that there was an internal remedy available and there were no exceptional circumstances. So those we would submit are the issues. We respectfully submit that the Court a quo in fact faulted in both these respects. And if we can start off with the first issue, that is the question relating to the issue as to whether there was in fact an internal remedy available to the appellant at the stage when he approached the High Court with the application relevant to this appeal. The first submission that we wish to make, justices, is that although it is not specifically mentioned, it should be an effective internal remedy available. It shouldn't be a remedy that would not be effective in curing the specific complaint that a person raised in the proceedings.
Now, how do you read Section 10(3) of the Act, the Health Profession Act?
10(3), Justice Shongwe reads, an appeal committee referred to in subsection 2 shall have the power to vary, confirm or set aside a finding of a professional conduct committee established in terms of section 15, etc. So the important words we submit is set aside a finding. And that is indeed an extremely important starting point, but of course we submit that one should read the relevant section with the regulation, and in that regard we refer to regulation 8.
The finding that you are challenging is the finding that the members of the disciplinary committee were not obliged to recuse themselves. Yes. Now, if that finding was set aside, what is the effect of that upon the proceedings?
On the proceedings? Well, yes. Of course, then the effect would have been that they should have recused themselves and that the court should have made the finding that they have to recuse themselves.
What is the effect of a finding of bias upon a presider in a court of law or a tribunal? What effect does it have on the proceedings?
Well, that makes the proceedings void, I would submit, Justice Sway.
Well, you see, I think what it does is that if there's a finding, it means that the proceedings are a nullity. So if it is a nullity, do the proceedings stand or do they have to be set aside by way of a review?
Well, of course, if the presiding persons recuse themselves, I would submit that there would be no necessity to indeed set the proceedings aside.
Well, you see then in the decision of Council Review, SADF and others versus Monig, a decision of this court, 1992, Volume 3, SA 482 at 495, this court dealing with the issue of recusal, in the following passage, if, as I've held, the court-martial should have recused itself, it means that the trial which it conducted after the application for recusal had been dismissed should never have taken place at all. Yes. What occurred was a nullity. It was not, as in many cases the cases quote to us, an irregularity or series of irregularities committed by an otherwise competent tribunal. It was a tribunal that lacked competence from the start. Yes. The irregularity committed by proceeding with the trial was fundamental and irreparable. Accordingly, there was no basis upon which the Council of Review could validate what had gone before. And this is the important passage. The only way the Council of Review could have cured the proceedings before the court-martial would have been to set them aside. Right. And that's consistent with decisions that a decision in a disciplinary inquiry is an administrative decision, and with Odecrol, where an administrative decision stands until it's set aside. Now, does the appellate tribunal in this case have the power to set the proceedings aside?
I would submit no.
So then is it an effective remedy to go to the appellate tribunal?
It's not an effective remedy. Justice Swain, I would submit that when one deals with a recusal situation, it's basically a jurisdictional issue. It relates to the competence of the court or the presiding persons, if it is a tribunal that one has to deal with.
But isn't the bias principle derived directly from the Constitution? In other words, Section 34 guarantees the rights to have disputes decided in a fair public hearing before a court or, where appropriate, another independent and impartial tribunal or forum. And the Constitutional Court in Burnett versus Absa said that this presumption therefore flows directly from the Constitution. The authority of the judicial process depends upon the presumption of impartiality.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Justice Swain. The basis for recusal and or the decision on bias stems from the Constitution and the right to have a fair trial if it's court proceedings and or fair administrative procedures if it is indeed an administrative process.
Mr. Cilliers, does it not, just on the adverting to the point that my brother Swain put to you, as was held in Bernard, the Section 34 right is implicit, as the court said there, Constitutional Court. It's either implicit or explicit in the requirement that the tribunal, because it talks about a tribunal or a forum. Section 34 is implicit in the rule that the tribunal must be impartial. Not so.
Absolutely.
Now, the Section 34 right was not taken by you, was not raised by you at all in the papers. Is it competent for this court to have regard to the Section 34 right? Firstly, let me just understand this. Am I correct in my assessment that you didn't raise Section 34 squarely for the respondent to deal with this?
Well, Justice, I would submit that was the very basis of the application. But at this stage, what you must, with respect, remember is what is before you is not the question relating to that issue specifically. The question that this case was decided on was only two issues, as I mentioned in the beginning, whether there was in fact an internal remedy, and secondly, whether there were exceptional circumstances if you indeed hold that there was an effective remedy. So the issue of the fairness of the proceedings is not at present before you.
No, I accept that, but what I'm saying to you is the Section 34 right, the fact that we have to take it into account, where does that power come from?
Well, you have to apply the Constitution, Justice.
Does it not reside in Section 39 too? That when a court has to interpret legislation such as this piece of legislation, the Health Professions Act, that it has to take into account it's got to interpret it in such a way that gives effect to the spirit, purport and objects of the Bill of Rights.
That is an overriding principle entrenched in our law, and with great respect I would submit it will always apply not only to a court on appeal but to all courts and all tribunals.
So on that basis the court has to have regard to Section 34?
Yes, so. Absolutely. And to all other fundamental rights of the parties involved in.
And then one last question on this aspect, Mr. Cilliers. Is there any provision, does Panja Section 7.2, which prescribes the exhaustion of an internal remedy? Is there any case or is there any principle in law that allows an internal appellate body, or let me put it more directly in this case? You've referred to Section 10.3, or you were referred by my brother presiding to Section 10.3. Does Section 10.3 allow for an appeal where the appellate, where the lower body, in this case the Professional Conduct Committee, does not have jurisdiction?
Absolutely not. That is the argument, Justice Schippers, that we intend to develop before you, because we submit that if one has full regard to the regulations, then this becomes absolutely clear that there is no jurisdiction for the appeal committee to decide on an issue of this nature.
So just for my own understanding, I thought initially we were saying that the issues that we have raised that are before us are two issues. I thought there were only two issues. This other issue about Section 34 and all that, it was not raised before the High Court. And the other parties never had an opportunity of dealing with that issue because it was not raised at the High Court.
No, Justice.
They dealt with the two
arguments in relation to that 13-year sentence given to Oscar Pistorius. Well, we'll keep you updated on that story, but Right now, it's 10:00 hours. Let's take a look at your news headlines. The Supreme Court of Appeals has extended the Paralympian Oscar Pistorius' jail sentence from 6 to 13 years and 5 months. Thousands are gathering at the National Sports Stadium in Harare for the inauguration of Emmerson Mnangagwa as Zimbabwean interim president this morning. And outgoing ANC President Jacob Zuma hosted a working dinner last night with ANC cadres who have made themselves available for nomination as president of the ANC at the 54th National Conference next month. Those are your headlines. We're not going to give you sporting headlines right now because there's a lot happening in the news. So breaking news this morning, Oscar Pistorius will now spend 13 years behind bars. The Supreme Court of Appeal has upheld the state's application for a harsher sentence, adding 7 years more to his sentence for murder. Pistorius was sentenced last year to 6 years by the North Gauteng High Court. He shot and killed his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp on Valentine's Day in 2013. The appeal court delivered its sentence a short while ago.
The state appealed against the culpable homicide conviction. This court on 3rd December 2015 set aside the culpable homicide conviction and replace it with a conviction of murder on the basis of dolus eventualis and refer the case back to the Court of Law to consider a fresh and appropriate sentence. The Court of Law considered an appropriate sentence, and on 6 July 2016, the respondent was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment. Aggrieved by this sentence, the state applied for leave to appeal against the sentence imposed on the murder conviction, and on 26 August 2016, the Court of Law dismissed the application for leave to appeal. On 14 September 2016, the state lodged an application for leave to appeal in this court. On 2 November 2016, this court ordered that the application for leave to appeal be referred to oral argument and that if called upon to argue the merits of the appeal, the parties must be prepared to do so. This court held the application for leave to appeal and the merits of the case on the 3rd of November 2017. After hearing argument on both the application for leave to appeal and the merits of the appeal, this court, by unanimous decision, granted the state leave to appeal and found that the sentence imposed by the Court of Law is inappropriate. This court determined that the respondent, Mr. Pistorius, should have been sentenced to 15 years imprisonment, but took into account the sentence he served prior to being sentenced on the 6th of July 2016. The respondent had already served a period of 12 months imprisonment and correctional supervision for a period of 7 months, and he was given credit for that. I will now go back to the judgment, and I'm not going to read the whole judgment, I'll only read the order. The order reads as follows. 1, the application for leave to appeal is granted. 2, the appeal against sentence is upheld. 3, the sentence imposed by the Court of Law in respect of murder is set aside and substituted with the following. The respondent sentenced to imprisonment for a period of 13 years and 5 months. I hereby hand down the judgment.
Lessons to be learned. Don't ever appeal your sentence. Now, we're staying in court. The murder trial of Christopher Panayoto, who masterminded the abduction and killing of his wife Jade, has been given a life sentence in the Port Elizabeth High Court. Jade Panayoto, as you can recall, was murdered in April 2015 by men who were hired by her husband. We'll bring you some more on that story a little bit later, but life sentence there. Now, Zimbabwe takes center stage today with the inauguration of the interim president, Emmerson Mnangagwa. Zimbabweans are gathering at the National Sports Stadium in Harare for the ceremony. It will officially end the 37-year reign of Robert Mugabe, who resigned on Tuesday after last week's military takeover and is acting as the ZANU-PF leader over the weekend. South African Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services, Siyabonga Cwele, will represent President Jacob Zuma at the inauguration.
The challenges are clear, and for the new Commander-in-Chief, a strong, focused and dedicated team is needed. He is expected to appoint a new cabinet soon with far-reaching changes. With some former ministers having already been expelled from ZANU-PF, Mnangagwa's dream of a lean cabinet may be realized. The bloated cabinet has always been his concern.
He's a great strategist and he's a businessman, excellent. And with if he can work on energy, so that when we have energy, our manufacturing industries can begin to blossom. And then with the wonderful people like Comrade Chris Mchangwa, if he was to end the foreign affairs ministry to mobilize the international world to come in, I know that we will go somewhere.
Mnangagwa is expected to appoint 2 vice presidents, including one who is likely to be a member of former ZAPU, and the war veterans are expected to be accommodated in cabinet.
I thank you.
Sophie Mukweni, SABC News, Harare, Zimbabwe.
And of course, we're staying with Zimbabwe now. Earlier, just before 10 o'clock, before we went to court, we spoke to Mr. Isa Komo. He is, of course, the Channel Africa specialist in studio with us to talk about the future of Zimbabwe. A very good morning to once again, sir. Let me start off where we left off the last time. We were speaking about the ZIPRA and the Super ZIPRA factions at that point in time where you left off. Just take us through your process.
Yeah, it was Gukuruhuni. Now, I was saying that the whole issue was actually mixed up with the Mozambican Renamo fight. Now, with the objective of the South African apartheid regime was to strangle Zimbabwe, to bring it to its knees so that they could actually sort of come negotiate and not give sanctuary to the liberation movement, South African liberation movement. So now with the fight in Mozambique, the thing that the Renamo did is that they concentrated on the Beira corridor. The Beira corridor was the only outlet to the sea, at least one or two, which Zimbabwe had. And it also had the oil pipeline. So now there's a very big war. The Zimbabweans were forced to actually send their troops to actually sort of keep that Beira corridor open. That's the rail, the roads, and the oil pipeline, and also assist the Mozambicans. The Tanzanians also sent troops to go and assist. It was a major operation. But when the Zimbabweans had their attention in the east, a new front was established in the west by the same South Africans.
Yes?
Yes. There is a book which has been written about the fight against the frontline states. I mean, the South African moves in Angola, the South African moves in Mozambique, South African moves also in Zimbabwe. And that book was forwarded by, the forwarding was written by President Julius Nyerere, the late President Julius Nyerere. And all this, what I'm telling you, it's there.
Yes.
Yeah. But then when they actually opened up the new front, they took the renegade ZIPRA forces. And it should be remembered that some of the renegade ZIPRA forces were also taken by covert. They were the people who were actually shooting people and killing people in the trains. It should be remembered.
Yes.
Yeah, people seem to be speaking a very funny Zulu. It was them. Now, the new front in the West, they actually sort of, it was discovered that it was from the same source simply because the weapons that were being used, the AK-47s, which were being used by Renamo, were the same as the ones which are being used in the West, in Matabele land. They had their numbers, their identification numbers welded out. Yeah, and they came from the same source. Yeah.
So who was supplying them these weapons?
This was the South African thing. That's why you find that the South Africans were involved in arming, aiding and abetting Renamo, and also with the Super ZIPRA, as they call themselves. Yeah. Now, with that, with the split within the Zimbabwean forces, that's when they decided to have this Korean trained 5th Brigade. And it was away from the army. They just took other Zanla forces who were not integrated, and they got the North Koreans. They trained them as Commando Special Forces, yeah, and then they enlist them. In fact, I was told just before them by a friend of mine who said that there's a force that will actually move on the ground, on foot. Yeah, and that was the 5th Brigade. Now the 5th Brigade, the tactics that they used to fight the Super Zebra, it was the same that was being used to fight against any guerrilla warfare. It will be understood, unfortunately, it's not been said, that the inhabitants of Matabele land, a lot of them went and supported Super Zebra.
Yeah?
Yeah, because once the rebellion took roots, the rebellions and guerrilla warfare takes roots when you get support from the people. Yeah, so Super Zebra did get that support, and that was where the mistake was, where the really innocent people, they gave support, and that was due to the tribal animosity and tribal affiliations that is there in Zimbabwe. It was looked upon as a Matabele group fighting against the Shona suzerainty or domination. Now, the thing that the 5th Brigade did was exactly what the Cellar Scouts did. If you come to the Cellar Scouts was formed by Ian Smith's government, and it was to fight against the guerrilla warfare, especially in the east, in the Mtari area, where the Zanla forces were getting in. Now, these guys, they actually went on the ground, disguised themselves as guerrillas, and went to villages, and where they saw the villages were supporting the guerrillas, they wiped them out. Yeah. And the action of the Cellar Scouts, it was so secret that it was not reported. Even the top commanders of the Rhodesian army never knew of the operation of the Cellar Scouts.
So this is much worse than what...
Yes, and what they did was much worse than what the Gukurihondi was all about. But Gukurihondi actually did the same thing, where they went and they did not target the fighters more so, but they targeted the source of support, which was the people, and that is a very sad thing.
Emerson Mnangagwa was part and parcel of this.
Well, Emerson Mnangagwa, he was part of the planners. Yeah? When they actually planned and they planned the operations, he was very close to Mugabe, and he was in the Defense Council. And again, it never involved the army, the main Zimbabwean army, because the Zimbabwean army then, it still had former Ian Smith officers.
Yes.
Yeah, you remember that some of them even sabotaged the planes and they blew them up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were trying to form a nucleus of a new army. So that's what happened. Yeah.
He's being inaugurated today, Emerson Mnangagwa, as the new interim president for Zimbabwe. Can he bring a change to Zimbabwe and to the party ZANU-PF?
That's why I differ with a lot of Zimbabweans, because I sound to be an anti-Mnangagwa. I tend to have the opinion, I hold the opinion, and many people do hold the opinion as analysts. They say that the major problem of Zimbabwe was not Mugabe. Mugabe was one of the main problems. But the major problem of Zimbabwe, it is actually the demise of the democratic space, and also the demise of the rule of law, and also the destruction of the institutions that guarantee democracy. Yeah, those are the biggest problems. Now, the removal of President Mugabe will not solve the problem because those key issues are not yet there.
Because some say the process was completely illegal.
Well, the process, again, it's illegal. I mean, say the whole process of removing Mugabe was illegal from the way that the army came in and involved themselves in party politics. Yeah? What happened was this, they're trying to come in and solve an issue which was a squabble within the ruling ZANU-PF. That was illegal. It was a treasonable case. And the second case was this, that the army actually sort of incarcerating. Well, it was an open incarceration, but it was incarcerated of a head of state. That's treason. Yeah? And again, the whole issue of arresting ministers. Minister Chombo was arrested. I mean to say he's still in jail. Yeah? That was illegal. But again, you find that even within the party, the movement itself, I mean, the whole issue of expelling members. Members are expelled after disciplinary hearing. And they've been given a chance to this thing. But that was just a purge. Yeah? But again, more so, even the appointment of Emerson Mnangagwa as president of the country, it's also illegal. This was pointed out by a former High Court judge of Zimbabwe. Yeah, he was the first indigenous judge who was appointed after 1980. Yeah, I mean, he actually reported, says that basically with the Zimbabwean constitution, I'm not talking about the impeachment, just talking about actual sort of installing of yeah. They say that in a case where that the president resigns or is impeached and there's no VP, vice president, yeah.
And in this case, there was no VP because he was fired.
Exactly. So the person who's going to be people who are eligible to become to fill in the position of the president are ministers. So basically, Mnangagwa was not a minister. One of the ministers, Chinamasa or somebody, they should have actually brought him, they agree upon it, take him to parliament, agree on that, and then he was supposed to be inaugurated today. But they've taken somebody completely out, which goes against their own constitution. But this is a set of, I will not call them errors, yeah? A set of, yeah, it's a comedy basically, yeah, that has been taking place. I don't know if this is the right time to come and analyze the thing.
We're going to talk about that just after this because we need to go to Pretoria where our presidential correspondent Mzwandile Mbecha is standing by to give us an update as to what is transpiring there where the President, Jacob Zuma, is meeting Angola's President, João Lourenço, on that state visit. Let's go there live.
Thank you very much, Elvis. Indeed, as you can see, the stage is set. The state visit is just about to begin. President Jacob Zuma has arrived. He's now waiting for his counterpart from Angola to officially kick off this state visit. We did highlight earlier that this is a very important state visit in that President J-Lo, as he's known in Angola, is undertaking his first state visit to South Africa, so that is quite significant. And you remember that when President Zuma as well was elected in his first term, the first place that he visited was Angola. And that underscores the kind of relations that exist between these two countries. So we're going to see the elevation of those relations with the state visit. I can tell you that it will be elevated to a binational commission. So, and a number of other agreements, Elvis, that will be signed. So we are here. The SABC will indeed make sure that it gives you where it's possible. Let's take the commercial break.
Do you have a funeral policy?
Making someone's dreams come true is not always as simple as saying yes. But AVBOB's Cashback Funeral Plan not only provides funeral insurance for your family, but also helps you to say yes to life's little extras. Because for every 5 claim-free years, you'll get an entire year's premiums based on your monthly premium value paid back in cash. SMS Duduza to 41790 and we'll call you. AVBOB, we're here for you.
If you want AVBOB to contact you, SMS Duduza and your name to 41790.
A warm welcome to one of your favorite weekly review analysis programs, Media Monitor. So let's look at the race itself.
It's just becoming a personality contest where people just want somebody to guard their own vested interest. And I feel that the country is at a point now where we need some sort of change.
It is ANC policy that they will have to implement.
We fairly know the direction the ANC wants to take. As a leader, you have to implement.
So what was it like on the ground in Kenya?
Well, the country is divided. The country is very divided.
I think within the country, for me, the one person that I criticize severely, and I'm not very happy with his approach, is Raila Odinga, with him pulling out.
Stay tuned to Media Monitor and catch on analysts unpacking top stories every Sunday from 9 a.m.
Well, you heard our presidential correspondent, Mzwandile Mbeja, there in Parliament. We'll also maybe touch base with him a little bit later to find out what's going on. So Angola's President, João Lourenço, is on a state visit in South Africa. We're also discussing here with Mr. Isa Komu. He is, of course, Channel Africa producer of Spotlight and an African specialist. But let me touch on that before we talk again about Zimbabwe. On the visit by João Lourenço, the Angolan president, to South Africa, the relations between South Africa and Angola was not that cozy, was it?
No, it was not that cozy, although they never quarreled, but it was not that cozy. It was issue over the security issues in the region, and also due to trade issues. Yeah, there were certain issues where, in fact, funny enough, the Angolans were not happy with South African, what they viewed as South African aggressiveness to get into Angola. Yeah, they thought that Angola was still weak economically. Yeah, they once thought that they could only sort of allow South African business to get in their full force when their economy was a bit better. But I mean, funny enough, they did not allow South Africans to get in there fully, but then they allowed the Chinese. The Chinese have a wheel of a time over there. Yeah.
So these bilateral negotiations, will that strengthen the relationship, you think?
Well, I think it will strengthen the relationship. It's a new ruler, Lourenço, and I think it's trying to reestablish the relationship with South Africa, and he's trying to prove that he's a man of his own. You know, he's been accused of being a surrogate of the former president. Yeah, so I think he's actually going to try to prove that he's got his own mind. And again, he has been accused of being a surrogate by Angolans inside the country, where he met the intellectuals, and there was a lot of issues which came out, even issues of racism. Yeah. Oh yes. He met intellectuals, black intellectuals, and those pointed out to the Angolan oil corporation. They said the oil corporation is actually sort of the top staff. It is monopolized by the mulatto people. Yes, and said if there's any other vacancy, they go to Portugal. Yeah, and it says that the indigenous Angolans are not given space to rise in the whole thing. No, it's on record. It's not that I'm saying something, but it's in black and white. Yeah, and then he actually invited them, and they said it to him. So I think he's trying to assert his own style and trying to sort of get away from the past, because basically Angola, we talk of the corruption which took place in Zim, but I mean, or in Mozambique, but Angola was even worse. Yeah. They say that it was one of the most corrupt countries in Africa. It's
another country that we'll touch base on another time. Yes. But let's go back to Zimbabwe, where we left off. You were talking about the legitimacy of Mnangagwa as the new president.
Yes, that's according to their constitution. Yeah, the legitimacy, when they say they're taking him, they're going to make it legitimate. But that was according to the former judge, of Zimbabwe. It says that the person who's supposed to become the vice president in a case where there's no president and there's no vice president, it's supposed to be a minister, one of the cabinet members. And that has not taken place. They went and took a person who's not even, I don't know if he's already the leader of the opposition party, yeah, and to make him a president. So you find that the whole issue is actually tailor-made, yeah, from start, from the so-called mutiny or the rebellion or the coup, which is not a coup, yeah, up to where it is. It was actually tailor-made, designed to actually get a specific person into power, irrespective of what the constitution or what the process is, the due process is supposed to be.
Now, we heard also that the Zimbabwe opposition MDC party says it has not been invited to today's inauguration of the country. What do you make of that? And is that perhaps also an indication that we will not see a multi-party democracy within Zimbabwe?
Yeah, that's a very important thing. And not only that, I mean, you know, discussions, debates that we've been having, it says that the opposition, the MDC Tsvangirai, basically they missed an opportunity. You see, when the whole thing was going on, there was an impasse. It was, the window was open for them to come and take over the whole thing. But instead they just talked in low voices. But now they've been sidelined because now the ZANU-PF is confident, because they invited them to many of their things which they were having. But now you find that they're sidelining them. It shows that ZANU-PF is confident that it has got the will of it, it's got the people behind it. And it will, in such a situation, it will never actually invite the opposition to come and party with them. So they're trying to sideline them, which actually shows that what's in store. What is in store is this, that democratic space will not actually sort of open up. For a start, is this that the MDC was supposed to actually fight and cry to say that the global political agreement which was entered between ZANU-PF and the MDC, and which was taken to Parliament, and it was passed in Parliament, and it went and it was voted on in a referendum, and it got the okay of the people. Yeah, which actually was a thing to bring in the democratic space, but it was never implemented by ZANU-PF. Now, basically, is a time when the MDC and other opposition parties are supposed to cry for the implementation of that global political agreement, but they're silent. And that's the only thing that can guarantee them can guarantee a level playing field. But it's surprising that they're silent on that, and they're being marginalized now from the word go.
Another issue that transpired yesterday, Human Rights Watch says that yesterday soldiers marched with semi-automatic weapons and they attacked some of the, and ransacked some of the ministers of higher education, Professor Jonathan Moyo's house. Are we likely to see this kind of thing happening where supporters of Robert Mugabe are being targeted now?
Oh yes, that's happening. And what they're trying to do is this, that they're trying to make sure that the ousted faction, the ousted cabal, because basically what the people have taken over, it is just a cabal. They've got to make sure that the ousted cabal does not have the means of organizing themselves. And the means of organizing themselves is just one, it's financial. In politics, if you've got no finance, you don't do anything. You just talk and you don't go far. But if you've got the finance, you've got the money, you can do it. So now they're actually making sure that these people are actually pauperized. Yeah, you find that the Minister of Finance, he's jailed. He has been a Minister of Finance just from September. Yeah, but he's jailed and he's locked up. They're saying that he's a bad element. But funny enough, the Minister of Finance, when he became a Minister of Finance, he actually spoke openly, saying that he was going to institute an investigation into the disappearance of $15 billion US. That's the income, that's the proceeds from the Marange diamond sales. And it's known that that money was actually sort of, it disappeared in the hands of three people. The first thing is Chinamwenga, the chief of the armed forces, okay. And the number two is the new president-to-be, Emerson Mnangagwa. And the third person is Chinamasa, who later became the Minister of Mines. So he was going to actually instigate an investigation into that. And the poor guy is locked up. And in that way, in the process of arresting him, his bodyguard was killed.
Now, as we speak, Mr. Komu, the president is now walking side by side on the red carpet in Pretoria. There you see him with the president of Angola, Lourenço, coming down they first came down the steps, and of course now taking on the red carpet with their wives behind them. Let's now go over to our correspondent, presidential correspondent, Mzwandile Mbeche.
Elvis, the president of Angola has arrived. The president of South Africa is working with him right now, so the official state visit could begin. You'd remember that the state visit is accompanied by a 21-gun salute, so we expect that to happen very soon once the president has ushered in his counterpart. They are going to take their position, and then very shortly we will witness the 21-gun salute as a sign of respect to the incoming president, rather to the visiting president of Angola, João Lourenço. national anthem of Angola there. Then the president will start inspecting the guard of honor. It's a very precise ceremony because it's by and large run by the military. They are about to lead the president of Angola so that he can inspect the guard of honor. We are really witnessing the emergence of a new Africa or a new SADC. President Lorenzo took over from President Dos Santos, who had been in power since 1979. And interestingly, next door in Zimbabwe today, events which really have shaped this region are taking place. Coincidentally, President Mugabe was in power for almost as long as Dos Santos, and then change has happened. Before he became the president of Angola, he was the defense minister, and he's currently the vice president of MPLA, the ruling party of Angola. The president of Angola is greeting the ministers, and there is our ambassador, Ambassador Fanny Pakula, who is based in Angola. During the struggle days, Ambassador Pakula was one of those freedom fighters who was based in Angola, so he basically knows the territory. We also see our finance minister and Minister Mahlobo, who is now energy, being introduced to the new president of Angola, the 63-year-old who just took reins in September, replacing President José Eduardo dos Santos, who had been in power since 1979. It is very interesting to observe and notice what has been happening in Angola since President João Lourenço, or President J-Lo, as they call him in Angola. He has made dramatic changes in his first few weeks or months in office. So there does appear to suggest that he probably wants to really be his own man, because for a long time people have been saying he is perhaps he's doing the bidding for the outgone president. They now go to the ministers of Angola, where they are also introduced. And I know that in studio as well, Elvis is with Ndade Homo, who knows a lot about Africa. Ndade Homo, is there something perhaps that we should look out from President J-Lo?
Well, I would not know, but I mean, what you should look out is what is he going to do? I mean, because people have accused him as being a surrogate of the former president. Promoted, I think, about 30 to 31 members of the security clusters. These were generals in the army, people of the intelligence, and there was an issue that these people have got to be in their position for the next, I think, 10 to 15 years. So you can see that the outgoing president was trying to make sure that he still has the control of the organs of state, yeah, especially those very special organs of state which consist of the army and the intelligence, where these people who have been promoted and they're going to be in those positions for the next 10, I think up to 2030. Yeah, this is to guarantee that his legacy or he himself is not impeached or things are not changed drastically or very fast. Yeah.
Well, right now, as we speak, Mr. Khomo, we're going to break away from there. Mzwai, thank you so much for that update there. That is the Angolan president in Pretoria. Let's now go live to Zimbabwe. As you know, the inauguration process is happening there. And let's take a look at some of the pictures coming through and some of the speeches.
The rest of the stadium can see or witness the proceedings without obstruction. Please, members of the media, we request that you sit down. We request that you sit down. We request that you sit down so that you don't obstruct view of others.
Members of the media, please, can you sit down? You're obstructing everybody. They also want to see what's happening. Members of the media, please, don't obstruct anybody. This is a special day, a historic day for the people of Zimbabwe, for the people of SADC, for the people of Africa, and the world over.
Ilanga elikhulu eZimbabwe, ilanga elikhulu emhlubulweni weSADC, ilanga elikhulu kwele Africa, ilanga elikhulu ikakhulu kithi thina amaZimbabwe. Sicela ukuthi ke ecela izindaba lihlaleke phansi kuze ke wonke umuntu abone okwenzakalayo. Izuva guru zuva richagara mundangariro dzemumwe nemumwe wedu, zuva rekugadzwa kwemutungamiri mutsva wenyika yeZimbabwe vanozivikanwa nokuti ED, Comrade ED Mnangagwa. Zvakanaka kuti tose tikoti ED ndo zuva ranhasi riri pano.
Be louder and say ED. Let's hear you. You are lazy people. Why? Zimbabwe, oh yeah! I'm now going to hand over the mic We are proceeding with the program, and I'm now going to hand over the mic. I'm going to hand over the mic to the Speaker of the National Assembly of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Honorable Advocate Jacob Francis Mudenda. Honorable Advocate Jacob Francis Mudenda is the one now who's going to proceed with the program. We understand there are other heads of state still arriving. Can we wait a bit? Can we wait a bit so that the Honorable Speaker of the Republic of Zimbabwe can proceed accordingly? Can we have Macheso again? Macheso!
Zimbabwe, we're coming to you live from the National Sports Stadium. We've just seen the entrance of the president-designate, Comrade Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, into the stadium through a rousing applause. And it is happening. It has started here at the National Sports Stadium. Shortly, we will be seeing him taking his oath of office here at the National Sports Stadium to become Zimbabwe's second executive president. This is a momentous occasion. It's a big occasion. And just going back in terms of, we're just getting to know him as a person, and we'll be giving you his biography. We're also we're waiting for other aspects here to the program to continue. Following the 1964 Congress in Gweru, Comrade Emerson Mnangagwa with three of his colleagues, Shoniwa, Jameson Mudavanu, and Edson Shirihuru, were captured and arrested for smuggling guns into southern Rhodesia. He sent Lawrence Shoshe to go back to Lusaka with some messages, but never saw him again. Now, in spite of this setback, the Crocodile Group remained in operation and was joined by Matthew Maloa, a ZANU member who had trained in Egypt, in addition to smuggling arms into the country. Matthew Maloa, who was a ZANU-PF member, had smuggled guns into the country. A major task was to recruit supporters from Salisbury, Fort Victoria, Mberengwa, and Macheke, and smuggle them out through the border of Mutoko so that they could go on to Tanzania for training. Now, you will find that there's a huge in terms of reactions from the crowd here. You best know the biggest entertainer right now in Zimbabwe taking a stage. That is Ja Preza and his band for pelting some of the singles from his new album, Kutonga Kwaro, which has become a hit within the nation. And this is something that is increasing the mood here at the National Sports Stadium. And people are totally enjoying themselves here as we await to see the new president of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa.
Of the Republic of Mozambique, His Excellency UC, arrival of the President of the Republic of Mozambique, His Excellency UC. Welcome, Maoko Izanta. Sorry, we are now changed, protocol has changed. We are told is the former President of the Republic of Zambia, former President of the Republic of Zambia, His Excellency Dr. Kenneth Kaunda. And also the former President of the Republic of Zambia, His Excellency Rupia Banda. They are together. You're confusing. His Excellency, former President of the Republic of Zambia, President Kenneth Kaunda, and President Rupia Banda, former President of the Republic of Zambia, both of them. We used to say KK, former President of the Republic of Zambia, and former President also of the Republic of Zambia, His Excellency Rupia Banda. Zimbabwe, oye! We are also now receiving His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zambia, President Lungu. President Edgar Lungu, President of the Republic of Zambia, is just walking in. Maoko Isanta. Zimbabwe, oye! We welcome the President, we are welcoming the President of the Republic of Zambia, His Excellency Edgar Lungu. You're welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. Welcome indeed. Welcome, Your Excellency. Welcome indeed. Can you make sure you go the correct list, please? You don't want these mistakes.
We are coming to you live from the National Sports Stadium, where we are bringing you the inauguration of the President-designate Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. We are just seeing the arrival of dignitaries who have just arrived. As you see there, Comrade Edgar Lungu is the Excellency, the President of Zambia. Also, earlier on, we saw the arrival of Comrade Kenneth Kaunda, who is the former president of Zambia. In fact, Zambia's first president. Also, His Excellency Comrade Nyusi of Mozambique, the president of Mozambique, is here. And we expect more arrivals here at the inauguration of the new president of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. And it's a very huge issue, and we're seeing that these heads of states and the excellencies from different countries coming through, and people here in a festive mood, in a mood which is celebratory. We just seen there a bit of a performance from the man of the moment. Jah Praise was singing his song Kutonga Kwaro, and generating a lot of excitement from the people gathered here at the giant national stadium. I must say, by no doubt, am I seeing any open area or any open space here at the National Sports Stadium? And also here is Macheso, who also give us entertainment. Maybe we might find some of his new songs and some of his older songs as well. Or we also have Michael, or rather the Mahendere brothers, including Michael Mahendere and his brothers, who are coming through to celebrate with us in this inauguration of the new president of Zimbabwe, Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. And we go back to Jah Praise, who's back on stage through thunderous applause from the people here gathered at the giant national stadium.
Celebrations in Zimbabwe. That's happening right now with the inauguration of the president. It's going to happen shortly. But we're asking you a question on Zimbabwe. We'd like to find out from you, what do you see for Zimbabwe into the future? And do you think there might be some change? And you're tweeting us all the time about your thoughts on the issue. Let's take a look at what you're telling me. Lawrence Khapara says, there is far-fetched hope, but the fact that Mnangagwa was Mugabe's handyman, we should expect anything. This one from the Grey. He says, it's being surrounded by a number of bodyguards. You can't really see all the faces, but there he is in Kama, of course, coming through with his First Lady, coming through to the podium there and where they're going to sit. But as you can see, it's a packed stadium. It's all celebrations today in Zimbabwe, and of course we're waiting for that all-important speech that will be given by the new president of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa. They call him the crocodile. Now, Mr. Cornwall, we spoke about earlier, and we saw some of the pictures coming through, and some of the presidents that is coming to be at this particular inauguration in Zimbabwe. Rupiah Banda and Kaunda is also there. Talk to me about that, and take us a little bit back in relation to how they fit into the entire picture of Africa.
Yeah, Rupiah Banda and old man Kenneth Kaunda, these are retired presidents, but they are there. They've been invited, and they are going to actually sort of to the inauguration of the new president. And again, let's even take it a step further. They've got serving presidents like President Edgar Lungu and also President Ian Khama of Botswana. Now, I think what is happening now is this, that they're trying to give the whole change that is taking place elements of legitimacy and acceptance. Yeah, so that basically to try to appease the diehards and actually try to encourage the Zimbabweans that they should take advantage of this change, to this new regime, to bring change, yeah, to the Zimbabweans and to Zimbabwe. Yeah, that thing that is needed. When we talk about the whole process not following the due process of law and the constitution, which is true, but I think there are greater issues. The Zimbabweans need this change so that a new beginning comes in. Yeah. So I think people are just coming on board. So let's forget about the modality of the change. Let's take advantage of this and take it forward. I think that's the most important thing.
But the question then would be asked, why couldn't they wait for the elections? The conference is taking place in December. They move forward?
They could not wait for the elections because there was, what they say in Sesotho, mfirifiri. You don't know what to call it. There was a lot of muzziness. Because I mean to say that the person who actually spoiled the whole plan, wanted to spoil the script, it was Grace Mugabe.
Why?
Because I mean to say that from 2016, it was that Mnangagwa was going to take over. And this began before 2016 because it actually began with the removing of Joyce Mujuru from the vice presidency. Yeah? And then Mnangagwa the door was open for Mnangagwa. But then all of a sudden he's taken away. And once it's taken away, here comes the lady, the spoiler.
Yes.
So people says, no. Now we've got to act in other ways. That's what happened.
So are you suggesting then it was Grace Mugabe's ambitions to follow in her husband's footsteps that led to his downfall, to his gracious departure?
Yes, it was not only Grace's ambition. But I mean to say that it was open that Mnangagwa is actually talking to the British. I think I once mentioned that who's this thing, Atham Tabara told us. Yes. That Mnangagwa is actually talking to the British, yeah, about the life after, yeah, Mugabe, that is his presidency, not his life, yeah, and about actually normalizing relationship and also trade relationship, and also the British government is interested in actually sort of getting Zimbabwe back into its fold. As I mentioned again, with the Brexit issue, Britain is in a dire state economically, and there's an article which people could go to the media, in the British press, where they're talking about the new British neo-colonial move. Is this that they're actually going and looking at the Anglophone areas and the Commonwealth countries and bringing them closer to Britain in a sort of a neo-colonial economic relationship. Yeah, that is to give Britain access maybe to raw materials and also to markets after the Brexit thing. Britain, yeah. In fact, the thing that actually was talked about in Britain, in the British press, it's not a thing that I'm making up.
Yes.
So the whole thing fits into the Zimbabwean thing. The British are going to become much more active in the internal politics, not only of Zimbabwe, internal politics of South Africa. Now, as I mentioned, that the mere fact that the Lord Haynes, actually sort of instituted the investigation into the Guptas. Yes. It's not a mistake, yeah, doing it from the House of Lords. Yeah, it is a thing where Britain is showing that they're taking much more interest into the economic happenings in their former colonies and former countries.
So there's much more that one can read behind the scenes.
You've got to.
Of what transpired.
Yeah, the global issue, the macro and the micro. People have got to look at that.
Let's now take a look once again at Emmerson Mnangagwa and his rise to the presidency in Zimbabwe.
Years and 8 months. Now, after serving his 10-year sentence, he was further detained at Kami and then Harare prison together with all nationalists like Robert Mugabe, Noskala, and others. So we follow the proceedings here at the National Sports Stadium.
Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa has been Zimbabwe President Robert Mugabe's right-hand man most of his political life. He served as vice president from 2014 until his dismissal as vice president on the 6th of November 2017. All feelings between Mnangagwa and First Lady Grace Mugabe were contained in the party since 2016. Everything changed after he took ill in August at a ZANU-PF rally and was airlifted to South Africa for treatment. Following that incident, he and President Mugabe contradicted each other, Mnangagwa saying he was poisoned, Mugabe saying he wasn't. This angered First Lady Grace Mugabe, who publicly called for Mnangagwa's removal.
He actually wanted to wrestle power from the president.
It is Mnangagwa's dismissal from both cabinet and the ruling ZANU-PF that brought out both the Zimbabwe war veterans and the army out of barracks, guns blazing.
The current purging and cleansing process in ZANU-PF, which so far is targeting mostly members associated with our liberation history, is a serious cause of concern to us in the defense forces.
From these statements, it would seem President Mugabe had stepped on a landmine of his political career and the battle lines were drawn. Emmerson Mnangagwa was born on 15 September 1942 in Shivashani in central Zimbabwe. He was in primary school when his family was forced to relocate to northern Rhodesia, present-day Zambia, in 1955. In Zambia, he completed his primary school and enrolled for a building course, but he was quickly selected to enter Hodgson Technical College, where he was expelled in 1960 for political activism at the tender age of 18. After being expelled, he went into business briefly, but joined United Independence Movement Party of Zambia, where he was elected to the Youth League. In 1962, Mnangagwa was recruited into the Zimbabwe African People's Union, ZAPU, trained in Tanzania and at the Egyptian Military Academy. When ZAPU members broke away to form the Zimbabwe African National Union, ZANU, in 1963, Mnangagwa joined it, leading to his and other cadres' detention by Egyptian authorities who recognized ZAPU. Robert Mugabe secured their release and they returned to Tanzania. Upon his return in 1964, he and his group formed the now well-known Crocodile Group in Zambia. Mnangagwa and the Crocodile Group fought the liberation war on many fronts, traveling on foot between Salisbury, which is present-day Harare, and Tanzania. They smuggled arms, recruited cadres for training, and mounted roadblocks to terrorize whites. In the process, they deliberately alerted the media to their activities to draw attention from the Organization of African Unity, OAU. In December 2014, he became vice president of ZANU-PF and Zimbabwe. He continues to command a faction of ZANU-PF called Lacoste, a more modern version of the Crocodile Group of the 1970s. His run-ins with First Lady Grace Mugabe have resulted in her leading the Generation 40, another faction that wanted Grace to be vice president. From then on, allegations that Mnangagwa wanted to unseat Mugabe came into the open.
The party comes first. First, whatever differences you might have, the party comes first.
2 days later, Mnangagwa was removed from the Justice Ministry in a cabinet reshuffle, and the following weekend, Mnangagwa supporters humiliated the First Lady, causing the cards to tumble.
I think he is also my president. I love my president. I respect my president. I will help him to make this country prosper.
In no time, Mnangagwa had fled, saying he feared for his safety, but vowing to come back to lead ZANU-PF. Within 48 hours, it was clear who the Zimbabwe armed forces were behind. ZANU-PF has now made its decision.
Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa is vice president and second secretary of ZANU-PF, and his expulsion from the party be and is hereby nullified forthwith.
Now President Robert Mugabe has resigned and Zimbabwe waits for Emmerson Mnangagwa to take over.
Lovely package there, and these are some of the live pictures coming through on your screen right now from the inauguration process where Emmerson Mnangagwa will be inaugurated as the president of Zimbabwe. Now, Mr. Komu, we are still talking about Emmerson Mnangagwa, but and I don't think we finalized the point earlier when we spoke about it. Do you think that he can bring a change to Zimbabwe? Because we spoke about the party internally at first.
Yeah, well, Zimbabwe, the change, there are two changes that need to take place. Yeah, it's the expectation of the people and also the expectation of the business people. Yeah, I think to bring the change as far as the business sector, the economy is concerned, he can do it, but there's a lot of things that he's got to give in, and that will be very sensitive. Because key to that will be issues like the compensation of the return of the land. Already there are people who lost land who are talking about going back and demanding their land. Yeah. Now the land issue, basically, it's a very sensitive issue. I mean to say that even from Mnangagwa, with all his popularity, these are urbanized people. These are people from the town, from the city, people who are really workers and who have lost their work. They're unemployed. But when it comes to the majority of Zimbabweans who are rural, we do not know how they're taking it up. They may be indifferent, but the minute that they try to come and touch issues of the land, Zimbabwe is going to blow up. And they're the majority of Zimbabweans, 60%. Yeah. So it's got to be very careful and tactful. And again, the issue of democracy, the democratic space, and the implementation of the global political agreement, whether it's going to go with it. I mean to say that's another issue of bringing democracy into the Zimbabwean governance system, and also the institutions which guarantee that democracy. Now that will be another issue. Yes. And I think knowing them or knowing him, they will never give in to that thing, because basically they would like to reduce the democratic space so that come August 2018, yeah, they are the major force, the incumbents, and they're going to move ahead with the elections.
Is that your hope for Zimbabwe?
Well, my hope is Zimbabwe is this, that they've got to get their house in order and they've got to actually sort of make it a success. Because basically...
and we need them to be successful.
We wish them luck and we wish them to be successful. Yeah.
And that's the question we pose to our viewers as well today. We're asking you, what are your hopes for Zimbabwe? And let's take a look at what you are telling us on the Twitter handle, as well as on the Facebook page. On the Twitter handle, you can let me know during the course of the day. You can participate in the conversation. Let's take a look at some of those comments. This one from Pablo San says, it has to start with the reshuffling of the parliament. Draw up a new constitution that will free all the Zimbabweans. We all know that Mnangagwa has to pick up the pieces to rebuild the Zimbabweans' puzzled country into civil. This one from Michael Big M says, I wish them a speedy recovery in all aspects, because we are in the same boat and their problems affect us all, especially in the SADC region. I wish the NDC can form a coalition with other smaller parties and take over. And I know Uncle Bob's loyalists will jump ship and join the NDC. So says Michael Big M. Mataz says, Emmerson need to recognize that it's Zimbabweans and Chiwenga who put him there, but Changarai still remains our favorite. This one from Torment says, wish our neighbors the best of luck on their journey. I hope that they prosper and their economy receive or revive to create the much needed jobs. Democracy will always win, and dictatorship in the whole of Africa is slowly diminishing. Those are your comments. Thank you so much for participating in the program. You can still do so during the course of the day, because that is really the focus. It's the inauguration of Emmerson Mnangagwa. I'd like to thank my guest here in studio, Mr. Isa Komu. Thank you so much for your time, sir, and joining us. It was a long day, but I think it was a very prosperous day as well.
I enjoyed it too.
Isa Komu, of course, Africa specialist here in studio with us, of course, also producer of the program Spotlight on Channel Africa. We'll take a short break, much needed break, and we'll be right back after that.
In the belly of the beast, the vulnerable are easy targets in the streets. Marauding gangs terrorize communities mercilessly. With no respect for human life. Animals are also not spared. The money business knows no boundaries. There is no respect for life. Helpless communities silenced by their pain. Can their last defense be in time to the rescue? Special assignment Saturday at 5:30 p.m. when we unravel the truth.
Well, today we discuss the general practitioner or GP.
So the quality of the doctors coming through our medical schools is excellent.
Your GP is your family doctor. Your GP is your first point of care.
Who determines how much a consultation fee should be?
We set up networks of general practitioners, and one of the conditions of the network was to agree to charge a certain fee.
Specialists are specialists. We can't take away their role. We can't take away what they do for each patient in their disease entity.
Our specialist colleagues as well don't appreciate patients coming straight off the street, as it were, to see them. They're highly trained.
For health tips that will help you to adopt healthy living, catch Health Talk every Saturday from 9 to 10.
As you know, the inauguration is taking place in Zimbabwe. The new president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, let's go there live.
Rugare vanhu vaMwari, kotsoma Zimbabwe. I stand here very humbled and overjoyed to have witnessed God at work in Zimbabwe. There was a time when this nation almost thought God had forgotten them. But can God forget a nation like Zimbabwe? And yet, He has walked people on top of us, took us through the waters and through the fire, only to take us to plenty. Psalms 66:12. Ko idzo ndangariro dzake pamusoro pedu hadzisati dziri dzorugare here. Jeremiah 29:11. Mwari unogadza, Mwari unobvisa. When God recalled our former president, Robert Gabriel, vaita kugwa kwavo kwakanaka, hana kutisiya tiri nherera. He called Emmerson Mnangagwa to be the man after his own heart for the sake of his beloved Zimbabwe. Comrade President-elect, you have served your leader loyally, diligently, up to the end as Joshua did to Moses. It is our sincere hope and prayer that by the same loyalty and the diligence, you will serve Zimbabwe. Remember, the world is not going to judge you by what was done to you or said to you. On the contrary, the world is going to judge you by what you are going to say and do to your predecessors. Isaiah 43:18. Musarangarira zvinhu zvakapfuura, musafunga zvekare. Tarirai ndichaita chinhu chitsva, tarirai ndinochobuda zvino. ndichaita nzira murenje, ndichaisa nzizi musango. God and the people of Zimbabwe, you are known for patience and endurance. You are going to give this man good time, not a long rope, good time to deliver, time to meet their high expectations. You have to forgive them for expecting so much in such a time, considering how long they have waited for this opportunity. I'm saying this to you, incoming president. I'm also saying this to the people of Zimbabwe, and I'm saying this to God, the finalizer of all things. There are two men I would like you to emulate, our Lord Jesus Christ and Solomon. If you, like Christ, care to please God and the people, you will never go wrong. Luke 2:52, Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with men and God. The second man I would like you to emulate is Solomon. In Chronicles, 2 Chronicles 1:10, he cried to God and said, "Give me now wisdom and knowledge, that I may go out and come in before these people." As you take the mantle of leadership, be very conscious that God desires you to be the servant of the people of Zimbabwe in total. Numbers 11:12, this is what Moses said. Koinindini ndakagamuchira vanhu ava vose here? Kondini ndakavabereka here? Zvamunonditi kwavari ndivachengete pachifuva changu. Anotakura mwana, ndite somureri unotakura mwana unomwa, uvaise pachifuva chako, uvaise kuKenani. Joshua 1:6. Simba utsunge nokuti uchagarisa vanhu ava nhaka yandakavapikira madzibaba avo kuti ndichavapa iyo. Joshua 1:9, ko handina kukurayira here? Simba utsunge, moyo usatya kana kuvhunduswa, nokuti Jehovha Mwari wako unewe. Pa-8, book iyi yomurayiro isabva pamuromo pako. Constitution of this country. President-elect, you should have seen, you should have been there to see how the people filled the streets of Harare when they heard of your coming back. It was not only ZANU-PF, but all political parties, religions, tribes, churches, everybody was there. That's why God chose you to succeed your predecessor, an icon of the liberation struggle. You cannot take everybody into your government, but as you go in and out before these people, you can take everybody's idea into your government and still be loyal to your party that has nurtured you, your ZANU-PF, and to your God. Ichi chindicho chisi onekwi chatakaona muno muZimbabwe. Isu mapastors taifunga kuti Mwari uchatishandisa, asi vakaita kuda kwavo, vakashandisa masoja, the army, the generals. But strange enough, not even one sound of a bullet, no force, no hustle, no bloodshed. The streets of Harare have never been so full of happy faces of different people from different corners of this country, and races and color, men and women, old and young, different political groups, all waiting to welcome you. They were in one accord, soldiers with humility and friendlier than pastors. Surely a new thing, God at work in Zimbabwe. All set for, waiting to receive ibwe rekona rakanga rarashiwa nevavaki, Mwari akarita gwere rekona. Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. The people of Zimbabwe, the world at large, you aren't seen nothing yet. God at work, and I mean work of peace. Asiwakaipa, unotiza asina unomzingirira. Proverb 28:1. Very little did Judas know that in a few hours' time, amnesty and forgiveness was on its way. When Jesus said, for they know not, havana chavanoziva, as Judas warova pasi, and he has left the opportunity of amnesty. Has a crocodile got any mess in its teeth? Oh yes, oh yes. After an era of 37 years, this transition has been so peaceful. We thank General and the commander of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces and his generals and his team have done it, upholding the Constitution. Tina Mate, Baba vedu vari kudenga. Jehovah, taona Joshua mutsva, tamirira Canaan, pamberi penyu vana veZimbabwe yose vakamira. Testi vakaipasa, 37 years or 40 years muchiunde. Chasara chinyi, Canaan tinoivona, zvinochiitai tipinde. Vavengi veZimbabwe dzigoita idzo shamwari dzeZimbabwe. Chiti dzoserai fuma. Joshua mutsva uyu, mupei zivo, njere, rudo, upenyu. Ropafadzai his wife, the first lady, and his children and her children. Muzadzei azare nohumai hwakafita Zimbabwe. Amen.
Runyararo maZimbabwe ukuthula maZimbabwe Runyararo maZimbabwe ukuthula maZimbabwe sesiyaqalisa umsebenzi kaThesi oqhakathekileyo. It is now my honor and privilege to call upon the Chief Justice, Honorable Luke Malaba, to administer the oath of office of the President. Chief Justice. May I now have the privilege and honor to invite the incoming President, Comrade Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, to proceed to take the oath of office of the President. Your Excellencies may be seated now. Our invited guests, distinguished invited guests, Your Excellencies, please take your seats. Muri eZimbabwe ngatiteererei zvakutaurwa na Chief Justice.
Whereas, in terms of Section 96, subsection 1 of the Constitution, the former President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, by written notice, has notified the Speaker of Parliament of his resignation from office of the President. And whereas in terms of paragraph 14, sub-paragraph 4B of the 6th schedule of the Constitution, a vacancy in the office of the President must be filled by a nominee of the political party which the former President represented. And whereas in terms of paragraph 14, sub-paragraph 5 of the 6th schedule, the ruling party, ZANU-PF, has nominated Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa as the candidate, as the party's candidate to assume the office of the President. And whereas in terms of Section 94 of the Constitution, the President must take before the Chief Justice the oath of President in the form set out in the 3rd schedule. Now, therefore, I, Luke Malava, Chief Justice of the Republic of Zimbabwe, do hereby call upon you, Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, to take the oath of President.
I, Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, swear that as President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, I will be faithful to Zimbabwe and obey, uphold, and defend the Constitution and all other laws of Zimbabwe.
and that I will promote whatever will advance and oppose whatever may harm Zimbabwe. That I will protect and promote the rights of the people of Zimbabwe. That I will discharge my duties with all my strength to the best of my knowledge and ability, and true to the dictates of my conscience, and that I will devote myself to the well-being of Zimbabwe and its people. So help me God. I'm sorry. Thank you, my brother.
Congratulations, Excellency. I'm happy to. I think there's something else.
Zimbabwe, you've just seen there the swearing into office of the new His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, has just taken oath of office. He is the third President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. And this has just happened in the giant National Sports Stadium filled to capacity. Thousands, among thousands of Zimbabweans cheering on as we enter a new era, a new dawn for Zimbabwe. The Chief Justice, Honorable Luke Malaba, has just presided in the swearing into office of the new President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. And right now, as you can see, it is the adorning of the sash. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are watching this live, we have just entered a new dawn in this country. Zimbabwe has a new president. His name is Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. Joining us here are several heads of states. We know the president of Zambia, Edgar Lungu, is among us. We know the president of Botswana is also here, Ian Khama. We have several heads of states and governments who have joined us for this auspicious occasion. And as SABC, we are proud to give you these events live from the National Sports Stadium. Next up, we will see Commander Defense Forces and Service Chiefs paying their compliments to the Commander-in-Chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, His Excellency Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. We also see Pledge of Allegiance by the Commander Defense Forces and Service Chiefs being Commander of the Defense Forces, Commissioner General of Zimbabwe Republic Police, and Commissioner General of Prisons and Correctional Services. This is live.
The swearing-in has now been completed. The Commander of Defense Forces and Service Chiefs will now pay their compliments to the Commander-in-Chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, His Excellency Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. What follows next? Can we please listen? The commanders of Defense Forces and Service Chiefs will now pledge their allegiance to His Excellency the President. Dalan Pansi, Garai Pasi, please be seated.
Chiwenga, Commander of the Defense Forces of Zimbabwe, on behalf of all officers, men and women of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, do hereby solemnly and sincerely swear, affirm and declare our true loyalty to you, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Commander-in-Chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, and that we will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Zimbabwe and to the laws of Zimbabwe. So help me God.
We shall now have the Commissioner General of the Zimbabwe Republic Police to make his pledge.
Your Excellency, I, Augustine Chiuri, Commissioner General of Police, on behalf of all the officers, men and women of the Zimbabwe Police Service, do hereby solemnly and sincerely swear, affirm and declare our true loyalty to you, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Commander-in-Chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, and that we will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Zimbabwe and the laws of Zimbabwe.
Runyararo Kutula, the next Commander's Commissioner of Prisons and Correctional Service will now make his pledge.
Your Excellency, I, Parazai Willings Mondi, Commissioner General of the Zimbabwe Prisons and Correctional Service, on behalf of all officers, men and women of the Zimbabwe Prisons and the Correctional Service, do hereby solemnly and sincerely swear, affirm, and declare our true loyalty to you, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Commander-in-Chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, and that we will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Zimbabwe and to the laws of Zimbabwe. So help me God.
Our First Lady, Her Excellency Auxilia Mnangagwa, joins the new President of Zimbabwe at the swearing podium. Can we have now the family members of His Excellency the President to come forward and congratulate His Excellency? Just hold on, just hold on.
Yes, we are still here at the National Sports Stadium where we've just witnessed the swearing in of the new President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. And right now we've just witnessed the pledging of allegiance by the Commander Defense Forces and Service Chiefs, the Commander of the Defense Forces, the Commissioner General of the Zimbabwe Republic Police, the Commissioner General of Prisons and Correctional Services. And we've also seen the First Lady congratulating the new First Lady, congratulating His Excellency, the new President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. And we now await for the playing of the national anthem and fly past.
your security needs, look no further. Specialists in rapid response, 12 and 24-hour armed guarding, undercover details, dog handling, crowd control, training of security guards, cash in transit, and alarms rapid response. Visit Nokia Security.
We were taking live footage from SABC, the Zimbabwean Broadcasting Corporation. It seems that they are on a short break, but there you have it. The big day arrived, the swearing in of the country's new interim president, and the crowd certainly coming out in their numbers. We heard cheers as Emmerson Mnangagwa gave that swearing in, pledging his allegiance to the country of Zimbabwe. Let's take you back there, live visuals coming in from the National Sports Stadium in Harare.
The parade commander now invites the president to inspect the guard of honor, accompanied by Commander Defense Forces only.
And 6 detachments of 31 members each, number 1 and 2 detachments from the Zimbabwe National Army, the Central Bank. 3, Air Force of Zimbabwe. 4 and 5, Zimbabwe National Army Women's Services. Number 6 detachments, Air Force of Zimbabwe Women's Services. Band and drums from the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, all from up in open order, ready for inspection.
Off the border town along by...
All right, just another break in that feed there, but the new democratic space in Zimbabwe has come into being now with that inauguration and the official swearing in of new interim President Emmerson Mnangagwa. So a lot of people will be watching closely, as we have been watching the political movements over the last few days. People will continue to watch, indeed the world will continue to watch as this new transition comes into play, and how Mnangagwa builds up confidence within his party and unites his party and goes on to lead the country into greener pastures. He has been sworn in now officially as Zimbabwe's interim president, and a lot of people were asking going into this, will Robert Mugabe be attending, as hundreds of thousands of Zimbabweans attended that inauguration at the National Sports Stadium in Harare today. Some joined that inauguration proceeding from as early as 4 o'clock this morning. The swearing-in ceremony has officially brought to an end the 37-year-long rule of Robert Mugabe, which brought the country to its knees. Mnangagwa was fired by Mugabe as vice president earlier this month, which of course set in motion those historic chain of events leading to the 93-year-old former leader's departure. Mnangagwa's first task will be to appoint a strong, focused and dedicated team. The cabinet is expected to be assembled soon with far-reaching changes, with some former ministers already having fallen in the wayside. The new president's dream of a lean cabinet might be realized. A bloated cabinet has always been his concern.
I will discharge my duties with all my strength to the best of my knowledge and ability, and true to the dictates of my conscience, and that I will devote myself to the well-being of Zimbabwe and its people. So help me God.
Well, the world has been watching this incredible moment unfold today, and Zimbabweans living in Johannesburg have had quite a muted response to today's historic event.
Mugabe and Mnangagwa, they were eating same plate. So we don't know actually what's going to be happening. For now, we're looking forward.
No, I don't like Mnangagwa.
Why you don't like him?
Mnangagwa is like Mugabe also.
For now, I can't complain about Mnangagwa. But what we want is just like my mother said, it's good for now, because it's like we need a change. But I don't think they are going to have a change, because these people, they are same.
There's no difference between Mnangagwa and Mugabe, because they've been together since we got independence. So it's only now they're trying to make as if they are arguing. But my idea is It's better they put someone who's not of ZANU-PF.
Some interesting responses there from Zimbabweans living in Johannesburg. So it will definitely be interesting to see how the new president gains the confidence of the people. Well, President Jacob Zuma was not at the inauguration today. He is hosting his Angolan counterpart, João Lourenço, at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. The post-Robert Mugabe transition in Zimbabwe and rising political tensions in the DRC are expected to top the agenda. Lourenço is on his first ever state visit to a foreign country since winning the Angolan election in August. He succeeded Eduardo dos Santos. President Lourenço is leading a high-level ministerial and business delegation to discuss investment opportunities in the two SADC countries. Angola is one of South Africa's major trading partners in the region. Well, the other big news today coming out of the courts, the Steenkamp family has welcomed Oscar Pistorius' extended sentence by the Supreme Court of Appeal, saying it is justice for Riva. The court sentenced Pistorius to 13 years and 5 months in prison. In a unanimous ruling, the court upheld the state's application for leave to appeal. This after the NPA appealed a 6-year jail term imposed by the High Court for murder. Pistorius shot and killed his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp, on Valentine's Day in 2013. He said he thought he was shooting an intruder. Pistorius was found guilty of culpable homicide in 2014 and sentenced to 5 years in prison, but both the conviction and sentence were later challenged by the state at the Supreme Court of Appeal, which later changed his conviction to that of murder. In 2016, Judge Masipa resentenced the Pistorius 6 years behind bars, but the state lodged another application to appeal that sentence. It argued that Pistorius showed no remorse and that Masipa's sentence was shockingly lenient. The SCA agreed, saying Pistorius' initial sentence was not appropriate.
After hearing argument on both application for leave to appeal and the merits of the appeal, this court, by unanimous decision, granted the state leave to appeal and found that the sentence imposed by the court of law is inappropriate. This court determined that the respondent, Mr. Pistorius, should have been sentenced to 15 years imprisonment, but took into account the sentence he served prior to being sentenced on the 6th of July 2016.
Meanwhile, Oscar Pistorius' brother has tweeted that he is shattered, heartbroken and gutted. But in an exclusive interview with the SABC, Riva Steenkamp's parents say they now have closure after a long and arduous 5 years. They spoke to SABC reporter Eviwe Porti from their home in Port Elizabeth after the Supreme Court of Appeal's ruling extended Oscar Pistorius' sentence to 13 years in prison.
We felt that we didn't have justice for Riva. That's too lenient a sentence, but now we have justice for her.
I just feel that now we can get on with our lives, that everything has come to an end, and I, right from the beginning, always said justice hadn't been served. Today it has.
And the other big court story today, Port Elizabeth businessman Christopher Paniatu has been given the maximum sentence for the murder of his wife, Jade Paniatu. Judge Dalen Chetty handed down a life sentence to Paniatu for masterminding the abduction and murder of Jade. His co-accused, Nitemba Ninemba, was also sentenced to life in prison for the murder, plus 15 years for robbery with aggravating circumstances. Zolani Sibeko was sentenced to 15 years in jail for conspiracy to commit murder. The murder of Jade Paniatu has now come full circle. She was abducted from outside her Port Elizabeth home in April 2015, kidnapped and then shot execution style. The state called for the maximum sentences. The defense asked for leniency. In handing down sentence, Judge Chetty said Paniatu took no responsibility for the murder since the start of the trial, and his attitude shows a lack of remorse. On the other accused, the judge said their participation in the murder was because of their love for money. Paniatu's defense team says it will bring an application for leave to appeal the conviction on the merits of the case. The Paniatu family cried and comforted each other, while the Ings family was jubilant about the sentences handed down.
In 2015, we made a decision to buy a house in Lovemore Park for approximately...
All right, we'll take a short break. Stay with us. You're with the Midday Report. More coming up after this.